Last week, I talked about using art and books and music to open our minds and hearts to new experiences and understand our own better. And this week, we're talking about leaning into our own creativity with sketching. So, how did I find this? Last year, Amy Stanton, who you may remember from episode 80, introduced me to Sheila Darcey. She's an artist and founder of Sketch Poetic and the Living Canvas Foundation. And I was really curious about how Sheila was helping people process their emotions through sketching. But I identify, or I previously did, as someone who can't draw. I mean, I struggle to make a stick figure. So I thought, this sounds great, but I'm not sure if it's for me. But it could be amazing for other people. But I'm really curious and I love learning about things and immersing myself in worlds that are different to mine. And Sheila's art is very compelling. Her handprints and body art and canvases are extraordinary. So I started reading her book, Sketch by Sketch, and it was The Fool Kidnap. This book is so insightful and well written. It just made so much sense to me. And like everything in life, it came to me at exactly the right moment. It completely drew me in and has touched my heart in beautiful and unexpected ways. There are 21 chapters in the book, and each chapter is centered around a word, a feeling. It's like the sketch version of Consolations by David White. If you know that book, I absolutely love it. It lives on my bedside table and I refer to it regularly. And in Sheila's book, she invites you to think and feel and breathe into an emotion like love, fear, hope, and prompts you to sketch. Could be shapes, lines, squiggles, whatever comes to you while you're breathing into what you're feeling and remembering about that emotion. And it's not about being a good drawer or creating art. It's about being inside the creative process and connecting to your body and your heart and breathing into the flow of your conscious and unconscious. And Sheila invites you to make this sketching a daily practice like yoga or meditation, kind of like the morning pages from The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, if you have that book. So her book made so much sense to me, I took up the invitation and I started sketching into the inquiries that she was offering. And the clarity and calm that has come into my life has been incredibly therapeutic. My daily sketch practice has become a loving gift that I give to myself to work through and express what's going on inside of me and maintain balance. Sheila is a gifted guide and facilitator of intuitive expression and emotional healing through sketching and through art. She teaches classes in LA and uses her foundation to create connection and social impact through creativity. This woman is really special, so I had to have her on the podcast. I think you are going to want to bathe in the glory of the well of her offer. So let's dive in and get the skinny from Sheila Darcey. Oh, Sheila, I couldn't sleep last night because I was so excited to talk to you because I love your book so much. Thank you for this beautiful offering, this gift that you've put out into the world. I've started sketching and it's really changed my life. So I want to start with this, it has to be me moment where you left your corporate job and you started sketching to process life and explore your inner landscape.
Yes. I love the name of your podcast because that was the invocation of starting Sketch Poetic, is I had this dream. This is way before I even started to try to address my mental health, which is what I describe in the book as the genesis of Sketch Poetic. But what many people don't know is it actually started with a dream that I had. And this dream felt so real. And I live near the beach, but I felt like the tsunami was coming my way. But it felt like an energetic feeling, and that I was meant to be part of this wave of energy, and it had to be me. It had to be me being part of this collective movement. So I immediately felt the call for me and the we at the same time. Now, it wasn't until 6 months later that I decided I have to address my fear of flying, which is the conduit of all of it. But it was that feeling of I'm being called, but I'm being called as part of a collective call.
Well, those are the most powerful
Yeah,
calls, aren't they? Aren't they?
it
When the I
is.
and the we
Yeah,
becomes, right, the
yeah,
C.
yeah.
It's really amazing. I love this metaphor of turbulence that you talk about in the book. So take me inside of that, where you'd gone to therapy, you tried journaling, you tried all these other ways to process conflict within you, for want of a
Mm.
better expression. And you did have this fear of flying.
Yeah.
So take us inside of that, how that's part of this story.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the people that usually have the fear of flying have many different reasons: claustrophobia, heights. Mine was specifically turbulence, to be very clear. The takeoff and landing was fine, but what was happening is I had a couple of really turbulent flights where my entire body felt that weightlessness, that feeling of lack of control. And there's two parts of the way I would answer this. There was the conscious fear, and then there was the unconscious fear. And it was the unconscious fear that I believe I was really called to address, because that unconscious fear was the all the times in my life that my life had been turbulent. And I'd never used that metaphor before. I just thought
Mm.
challenging, traumatic, trials and darkness, but never once did I use the word turbulent. And so when I'm
Mm.
sitting on that plane and every part of my body doesn't know when it's going to happen, how long it's going to last, and how severe and intense that turbulence is, that was my life. I never knew those three things were always at play in my life. And so, of course, when turbulence hit, it was my body that was feeling it first. And that was how disconnected I was, is
Yes.
I didn't understand how my body was responding way before my mind and spirit were even called to listen and to hear it. And so, yeah, that's how I would describe it. As turbulence was really the physical expression of all the ways I had not been acknowledging myself.
So you're very open about this in the book,
Yeah.
about how living in a household with an alcoholic father and
Mhm.
abuse, and being a little girl in your room, hearing the screaming and not knowing what was going to happen and being afraid
Mm.
and things not feeling safe.
Never feeling safe.
Yeah, we need safety, don't we,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
allow ourselves to be seen, to
Yeah.
reveal, to not to be want to be seen but not feel exposed.
Yes.
We have to have that safety. So all the therapy that you'd done, what was the connection point where you connected the turbulence and that feeling in your body that was getting triggered by that physical feeling of the drops in altitude or
Hmm.
whatever? What was it that helped you make that connection?
Yeah. Well, I feel like there were multitudes of ways to answer that, because the healing journey of addressing that underlying foundation of safety, I think that's the most crisp and clear way to describe what I was really struggling with. And you mentioned my alcoholic father and the abuse. When I saw the hypnotherapist, so I've never actually done therapy. That was the first time I've even done therapy. And it was just because of my cultural upbringing as a Filipino woman. We never talked about our emotions, let alone go see a therapist. In fact, there was a stigma around it, I think. I would
Yes.
venture to say a lot of cultures, when you see a therapist, and I put that in quotes, you've got a problem. And
Absolutely. It's not just Filipino culture.
no, I know it's a lot of
Listener,
culture.
I'm sure you're sitting there going, hello, I'm not Filipino, and there's
Exactly.
stigma associated.
Exactly. Because I feel like that's such an important part to bring in, because I didn't go to address my mental health. I went to address my fear of flying, which felt very different.
Oh, so did
See what
that
I
feel
mean?
safer to you? I've just got a
Correct.
phobia. I've got to get over
Yeah,
phobia. It's not because
exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
And of course, I
okay.
called in the right hypnotherapist, because all she does is she got me to feel. She had me do exercises where I was screaming in a pillow. She had me, do a meditation and call back in my childhood. So the question you're asking is, when did I connect sketching with turbulence? It first had to connect with the fact that I could use sketching as a way to connect with turbulence. If I didn't even understand how is that even possible, which is why my whole purpose is arts and healing, because I did not know that through the art and through the act of creative expression, I could even tap into those parts of my body and parts of my memory and experiences that made me feel safe. And that is the
Got it.
key. Is you keep bringing up safety. There's something in the act of drawing and playing and being in creativity that made me feel safe. I was able to hold both.
So it was by the process of sketching, because I was actually asking you how you mentally made the connection, but it was through the sketching, which you talk about a lot in your book, that it was through the process of embodied sketching was how I interpreted, interpret your practice.
Yeah.
When I was reading your book, it felt very somatic to me. And, listener, I've interviewed a lot of somatic therapists and I do somatic therapy. It felt like an embodied practice.
Yes,
It
it
was,
is.
yes. So had you had experience with somatics of being in your body? You had not done that, and sketching was a way that you found into a relationship with your body listening.
Yeah. What's really mind-blowing,
Wow.
what's mind-blowing to me, Tess, is that I live in Los Angeles, which is very much into wellness. Yet I had never,
If you let it in.
if I had never
Yeah.
thought about
I
my
feel like a
body.
lot of people are doing a facsimile or a rendition of wellness in that
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
But there's so many nuanced layers, isn't it? And you don't know until you know, right?
Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
so cool when.
another great metaphor of what you just said is our connection to nature. You know how many times I would
Yes.
go camping, but I never really connected with nature.
Oh,
I could
so
be
true.
camping and I could be with the trees, but I never talked to the trees. I never was with the nature. I was like camping.
Yeah.
Similarly, I
Yeah.
have a body. I have a body. It supports what I need to do, but I was never in attunement or in connection with my body. It was part of the experience of my life, but it was very much an extension of me. It was never a part of me. And that is
Ooh.
how I always engaged with my body. And the more I created, the more I sketched. And all sketching to me is take out the pen, take out the movement of the hand. It is a portal for me to allow the unconscious to be seen. That is the soulful way I describe it. It is, Carl Jung talks a lot about it in the psyche. It's basically taking our dream liminal state and putting it on paper. That's what it feels like to me. And then the other reason it became so playful and inviting is people that have had trauma or challenges in their life or have had to survive their life are always in their head. And so we kind of look like walking heads. If I had to visualize society, it's just all these heads, no bodies, right? And then what ended up happening is as I was sketching, I was genuinely feeling like I was, if I used another metaphor, my whole body was full of ink and I was pulling from the well of my wisdom and my knowing. And that's how I started to feel my body is I
Oh, I
started to
love that.
trust, right?
Yeah.
That idea of, wow, my body's holding more than just trauma. My body's holding more than just memory. It's holding something that I haven't even had any capacity and understanding I even could hold because I was so busy trying to survive. And I didn't even call it survival. I just called it living. And I wasn't living. I was just in this act of doing all the time. I was doing a lot. And I was highly successful at the doing, might I add.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. I loved the part of your book where you talked about when you're in college doing computer science and you would pass an art major, and you say, correct me if please correct me because I could be butchering this, but the way I remember it from my heart was you saw them, and it was somebody you remembered but you forgot.
Ugh. I didn't say it that way, but it's a beautiful reflection. The essence of it is exactly how you described it. I can viscerally remember it all because every time I saw a person with an art box, it was that life is the life I really wanted. It was the life that passed by me like a cloud in the sky. It's the thing that I thought, what if and again, these are thoughts I'm having in reflection, but in the moment, it really did feel like I was seeing a ghost of myself passing. And now in the soulful realm in which we walk in the way that I see the world, that was simply an expression of how I was feeling. I needed to see that. I needed to feel that. That was me, whether it's a child or a person with an art box. There are people around us that reflect the parts of us that we need to see that we're not seeing. And that just happened to be a student with an art box. And that gave me the courage. It was probably the first brave act in the journey before before I even knew what awakening was, that's definitely one of the moments I was starting to awaken to being who I was and
Yeah,
am.
I loved that moment in the book. It really pierced my heart in this really beautiful way, because our heart always knows
Wow.
what we want. And then our
Amen.
mind just steers us away from it because of, you're very open about it. You didn't think your mum would accept it, but there's that beautiful moment in the book where you finally told her, this is
Yeah.
what I'm doing. And her reaction wasn't what you feared it would be.
No, no. She had that first initial disappointment,
Yeah.
but then that lasted maybe a few minutes. And then she goes, if
Yeah.
that's what makes you happy, do it. And I'm like, oh gosh, if I had known that. If I had known
Well,
that was
it's such
going
a
to be.
great example of how often the fears and the constructions by which we are living by aren't even true.
Yeah. And who knows
And
where she was in her psyche at that moment in time.
yeah.
She may have reacted different if there was a different point in time in which I had brought that to her. But for whatever reason, and I believe this on a soul level, her soul was able to give me that reflection because she was ready to do that. If I had done it any other time, which is why our soul paths are what they are,
Yeah.
she might have reacted differently. If she was in a state of fear, she clearly was in a state of love. Thank goodness.
But also you were in a different state, as you point out. So you were both meeting in different places in that moment, which is so wonderful. And when we show up with courage and truth and love, it's extraordinary what presents itself.
Yeah.
So when it was suggested to you that you perhaps draw and sketch, take me inside that moment where it took you back to your childhood that you talk about in the book, where you went, oh, every time, oh, I was actually drawing, and the difference between your childhood and then how you met the sketching in your adulthood.
Oh, I love the questions you're asking because as you're asking these questions, Tess, I keep hearing the observer and the creator happening at the same time. So I'm going to answer it from both those perspectives, right?
Please. And I love that part of your book, by the way, that every one of the 21 chapters we're invited to sketch from these two perspectives.
Yes,
I
as the
love
creator
that part of
and the
book.
observer. So thank you. I mean,
Yes.
first of all, I wrote that book so long ago, so I would butcher myself for reflecting it back to you. But
Well,
so
thank you for being so gracious. Thank you for being so gracious.
But going back to the genesis of daily sketching, it was the hypnotherapist. Her name's Linda Mallerstein. She still does it.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Let's plug her.
Linda. Yeah.
But she made an innocent. She asked an innocent question, and I had an innocent response. She said, "Was there a point in time? Is there anything you ever did that helped you to express your emotions?" And I said, "I used to draw all the time as a child, even in the turbulence of my life." I said, "But I did it to disconnect." And she said, "Have you ever thought to draw to connect?" And I remember hearing those words going, curious. Like I didn't even give it a second thought at the time. It didn't even hold the gravity with which it holds now. It was something she said that held curiosity for me. Like, interesting idea.
Oh, isn't that a delicious word to just dwell
juicy,
in curiosity, dwell in possibility.
Yeah. So I share that because not every aha moment is that like seas are parting. It was a curious response. And I'm like, that's a curious thought. Walked out of that office. And then I realized like, I'm going to quit this high stress job that was creating some of the turbulence for me. And then I'm going to find a job that is a really well balanced life. And I'm going to commit to sketching every day to connect. But she used the word connect. That's what really tuned into something special there. And so there's that part of it. But again, I did not anticipate truly. I genuinely didn't. It is the curiosity that led. And I believe if there was one emotion that I felt that has been the through line my entire journey, has been curiosity. And I say this in the book, curiosity cannot live in judgment and criticism, because the moment you are curious, you are not in that state because you're too curious. So there's no way judgment.
Well, it becomes something else when a judgment is attached to it, doesn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
Then it has a gender.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, good one. I love that.
Yes.
Love that.
Yeah. I want to ask you about this moment where you looked back and you thought, oh, as a child, I was I was sketching to disconnect from the turbulence or the abuse or the aggression or whatever it was that you were feeling from your father and the dynamic in the family.
Yeah.
But now that you're older and you are in the realm of this beautiful awareness and freedom with your expression and really chiseling your ability to connect with your inner landscape as you have done and beautifully shepherd others in doing, would you look back now and say, oh, I was disconnecting from external stimuli, but I was always connecting with my inner
Girl,
landscape. I just wasn't aware of it.
I'm going to say girl, because how beautiful. When you even said that to me, during our earlier conversations prior to this, when you said that, that really deeply resonated with me, because what you're bringing up is consciousness. I was
Yes.
not conscious that while I was disconnecting from my body, I was actually connecting to my higher self the entire time.
Yes.
I just didn't have the language
To
or
source.
understanding. I was also
Yes.
very young. I didn't have the languaging. I didn't know what that was. So the answer is a definitively yes. I did not know I was already having those conversations with my higher self or with God or with spirit or whatever the faith or bigger, the energy bigger than ourselves was happening. So yes, definitively that. But I also want to touch on drawing versus sketching.
Please.
When I first heard this idea of like, oh, let's draw to connect, I said, I definitively remember saying, I don't want to draw, I want to sketch. And it's because in the art world, sketches are fast and loose and they're not usually seen. Like if you go to retrospectives, artist retrospectives, often the sketches people love to watch. Like you go see a retrospective of Salvador Dali and you look at his sketches, you're like, oh, those are the sketches, the hundreds of sketches that led to his incredible work. And what that does and what that did for me, and again, this was all guided. I knew something. I mean, listen, in hindsight, I'm like, clearly all the languaging, the choices of sketching versus drawing was being guided to me because I knew deep down that the reverence and the intention in which I did it was part of the healing. So even just calling it sketching was very profound.
Do you know what's coming up for me as you're saying this to me? Years and years ago, I went to an exhibition at the Tate in London, and it was all sketches from Picasso.
Brilliant.
And obviously we know a lot of Picasso's work, even beyond the Cubist part of his work.
Yeah.
That is the most famous part of his work. Sheila, I was mesmerized by these sketches because the psychology, they were done later in his life when he was impotent and sexually frustrated. These sketches and the psychology behind what they revealed to me anyway, as someone who was looking at them, it was like a labyrinth. I couldn't stop looking at these sketches. They had to kick me out of the museum. I was the last person in there. I mean, it was just, so anyway, I'm just having a visceral response to you saying that to me. So thank you for opening that portal for me, because I had never thought about it like that. The difference between drawing and sketching.
Very different. And by the way, your response just now, that visceral, embodied, like full body yes, is why you connect to my book in ways other people don't always connect. Because you feel into my book. You're feeling
I go to a somatic practitioner.
Yeah, exactly.
Like your mother, you know, that we were talking about you and your mother having that conversation at exactly the right moment. Had I read your book 20 years ago, I would have a very different lens on it. Like the way that I was reading and feeling into your language and your book and your offering and accepting the invitation and the gift would be so different. So yeah, thank you, because your book came to me at exactly the right moment, as things always do.
It does,
and we surrender to it.
That's truly, I ritualize a lot of things that are sacred to me.
Yes.
And I remember when I got I forget the term for the book, when you get the initial, with the term, it's before the book is printed. It's
yes. Yeah,
anyway,
you proof it.
Proof. I got the proof.
You get the galleys and
yeah, I got the galley and the proof.
Yes.
Went to the beach, which is one of my happy places. I put my hand on the book and I said very much what you just said in reflection. I said, wherever this book lands, let them be ready to receive it in their own time. and let it
Mm,
stand the test of time is all I asked. Let it stand the test of time, because I knew definitively, because I've had many books like that sit on my bedside. It holds energy, and I don't pick it up for a year, six months.
mm,
Sometimes I never pick it up, but because I'm not ready yet. And so
mm,
I knew that feeling, and I wanted the same, which is it's okay. It's not meant to
mm,
be. And also that is the healing journey. That is the healing
mm,
journey. We must be ready. Until we're ready, I'll give you a great metaphor in my workshops that I do. This is the metaphor I give. You're on the edge of a cliff, right? And your hands are there, and I stand on top of the cliff, and I say, Tess, let go, take the leap. And you're like, what the F, Sheila? If I let go, where am I landing? What's going to happen? And that's faith, that's trust, that's all of the things. I can't tell you to let go, because I can't tell you what you have to feel ready to let go. So that's the metaphor I often use. So when I guide people on that very first sketch, when I guide people to do that very first prompt, we often start with the breath, because the breath is the first leap.
I
It's
mean,
just
that is one of my favorite chapters of your book is Sketch into Breath, the chapter
really, of
about breath.
course
Well,
it is.
it really spoke to me. The chapter about surrender spoke to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I could do a 21 series podcast with you and dissect each chapter with you. Seriously, I really could, because that's how much I love this book. There's so many things coming up for me. So let me just spew them out, because I just don't want to lose them, because another thing that I love about your book is you are a beautiful writer. And you have a great command of language. And so the language is there because that's how we understand the written word, obviously. And yet at the same time, your book transcends language. And the practice by which you are inviting us to participate in and to ritualize, to use your word, we need to let go of the language. And we need to somatically listen to our bodies and let the pen go where it goes. So when you're guiding people, actually, let me just ask you this, because this was coming up for me as well. One of the this is another part of your book I absolutely loved, was when you talked about the genesis of the phrase "let go." Can you take everybody inside of that, because it was very interesting to me?
Oh, you're talking about the history. I don't exactly
Yes.
remember about the dam. You
Yeah,
might. I
yeah,
mean,
but
you
but
just
just the
read.
just the just the how you understand the concept of letting go.
I mean, letting go is, for me. I mean, I'm not going to focus on what exactly I wrote in the book, because that's going
No,
to
that's
trip me
okay.
up.
That's okay.
But
Yeah.
letting go is, the act of surrender is really an interesting thing, right? Because it's, for me, it was about having a crisis of faith and things building up, in this idea that you must you have to hold it before you let go. So that's how I'm going to answer that.
Mm-hmm. Mm,
Letting go, there's this perception, and certainly conscious and unconsciously, that I had to hold on to something to let go of something.
mm,
So the more I held on, the more I had to let go. And that pressure, this constant tension, and that is what it is. It's energetically, this tension, this resistance. And then on the other side of the letting go, you're like, what am I letting go to? Right? So that idea of like, okay, once the dam is released, and then, by the way, that is one of my prompts, is the Pandora's box in my workshops,
yes.
because I talk about this idea of, we believe that the letting go is an act of releasing, but really letting go is the act of accepting what's already always been there. The Pandora's box was always inside of me. It was always opening and closing. I just wasn't recognizing that. In fact, I thought my job was to get the box out of my body. I'm using that metaphor for a reason. Get it out of my body.
Yes.
Be brave and courageous enough to open it and let the Pandora's box. And then we know from the mythology that the other side of it is hope. That ultimately it
Yes.
gets you to hope. But none of that was at play. All I knew is contain, suppress, push, keep it in. And my house is the body. And I just held it all in. So the idea of letting go was such a scary proposition, because that's how I held it. It's like, if I let go,
Yeah.
all hell is going to break loose.
You see, the way that I think of letting go now is I don't think it's possible to completely let go of things. And why would we want to let go of the lesson or the gift?
Yes.
However, we're holding it. We are being called to build a different relationship with it. And
Yeah.
that's not
Love that.
static. We can have a
No.
different relationship with something every minute of the day if we choose.
Yeah.
And we're holding these apparent conflicting or oppositional forces in balance together.
It's
And
unity.
so many of your testimonials are about this from your students. I love how you've got it set up where someone gives shares their experience with Sketch Poetic and with one of your classes, and then you see their sketch.
Yeah.
Some of them brought me to tears because I wanted to know more about their story. And then I thought, oh, I actually get to interpret it now. I get to imagine where they are in the world sketching, or at least that's what I did. Maybe I'm just, because I'm an actor, that's what I do.
No,
it was so beautiful. And so many of your students were talking about how they were learning to hold these different pieces of themselves together, and that they can all be part of this beautiful tapestry. And part of the creative and the source together within them. And anyway, again, I'm probably butchering their language, but that's how my heart interpreted it. Take me inside how the invitation from the hypnotherapist to sketch took you into daily practice of 9 years before during at the same time that you started the business and started helping others come into this.
Yeah,
practice.
like how that
take me inside that evolution of, I'm going to sketch once. Oh, I like this. Okay, now I'm going to sketch every day.
Yeah. Well, the commitment of everyday sketching was the initial promise to myself.
Okay.
Because I knew, so my background is corporate business. I've been in the corporate field for 25 years. So I understood that repetition is always a way to solidify any sort of behavioral change. So that was just something I knew. So my commitment to sketch daily was more of a promise to myself to commit to something so that it would stick. That's the first thing. What I did not anticipate is when I would go to this coffee shop. So the place that I selected, again, Soul Journey, I've gone to a lot of coffee shops, but there's this one coffee shop in West Hollywood. I do believe the land must have some sort of indigenous thing, because there was.
I have to know the coffee shop now, because I've lived in LA for over 30 years.
Yeah, it's called Verve on Third. But
yes,
you know it?
Yes.
Yeah, Verve on Third. But there's the people. I've been to other Verve coffee shops. It was this one because it was just this interesting microcosm of people. But so when I was doing it, I remember 6 weeks into it. I remember 6 weeks into the daily sketching. I said out loud, do people know art heals? Because I started noticing my breath. Like I started noticing when I held my breath. I started noticing how shallow my breath was. And in that noticing, that's when the comment was, do people know art heals? And my background is training, facilitating workshops with executives, with Fortune 500 companies. So what happened is I was meant to go through that journey because I was easily and quickly able to take my skills and this kind of like emotional, spiritual, soulful journey and bridge the two, because I was able to deconstruct. Because now I'm wearing a workshop facilitator hat, and I'm going, okay, how do I deconstruct this for an hour, right? And that's so I was able to then take what I was doing, and so then I became not only an observer of my sketches, I became an observer as a teacher, an observer as a facilitator. And so I started to notice, and again, that journey was not a coincidence, because by looking and observing it that way, I held a lot of compassion for myself, just even in that act, because I took myself out of the equation and started thinking about the collective. This is the I and we again. The I and we has been at play since day one. Of course, something that was going to heal me has to heal others, because that's the way, not only was I wired as a Filipino woman, that's just in our nature, but that tsunami I talked about earlier, that is the we. They're like, Sheila, we never invited you to answer this call for yourself and only for yourself. You were supposed to be part of a collective, and now plugged into many people like yourself that do this work in our ways that we're supposed to do it and express it.
In the ways that we are meant to do it. Absolutely. So then you started teaching classes.
Correct.
And inviting other people to participate in this beautiful practice. Yep. So take me inside that evolution.
Yeah.
So first, of the dance of learning how to shepherd others.
No, I love this. I love this. Actually, you're bringing up an interesting full circle moment I never considered. I never started by myself because I didn't feel confident yet. So I partnered with.
Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to go in the realm of mental health and healing, but I was new to the space and I didn't feel like I had the credibility. Like, who is this
Oh,
artist? Like,
imposter
yeah, imposter syndrome,
syndrome.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So my first workshop in person was with this beautiful woman. Her name's Geeta Novotny. She is
Thank
a
you,
sound,
Geeta.
yeah, she's a sound bath healer, vocal
Oh,
teacher. Yeah,
I do
but she's
sound
a,
baths all the time.
so
Yes.
yeah, but she's also
Yes.
an opera singer. She was a former opera singer
Oh,
that turned into, so
oh,
she,
interesting.
yes,
So she was familiar with accessing the back cavities of her body.
correct.
Got
And
it.
she's also very, very smart. So she understands
Okay, got it.
the science behind it.
And
I
she was already well versed in breath and using breath
correct.
and sustaining story. Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
So
Yep.
the answer is I co-created and collaborated with someone first that held the
Mm,
energy and space. I was both watching her and seeing the expertise of how do you hold space, but also
mm,
trying to navigate to your point, like how do we do this dance together? Do we put the sound bath first, then the sketch? So we
mm.
experimented. And one of the things that I've always called myself, even in the corporate world, is an innovator. Because in innovation, you take risks. And this idea of failing doesn't really exist because you can't be an innovator and not fail because that's part of innovation. So failure,
Absolutely. It's not failure.
yeah,
I don't
there's no
believe in
failure, but
failure.
I'm just saying that word doesn't even register to
Yeah,
me.
me
So
neither.
that's what was, so Geeta and I were innovating the entire time, working
Yes.
together. And then I
And
got
you were just exploring.
yes,
You were
experimenting.
playing. You were
Exactly.
playing.
I love saying that
Yes.
we played together. And then, of
You
course, eventually I
played.
got confident enough to do it on my own. And then I started
Mm,
to experiment and play with other, wellness, breathwork
mm.
facilitators, energy healers, all of the above. But then it became more of an orchestra conducting this beautiful symphony together versus like,
Oh, I love that metaphor.
yeah,
And it's a dance. I love that you've got the Michael Singer quote in your book.
yeah.
All the quotes. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
I
let me
hand
write that one
selected
down.
those.
Let me write that. They were just so perfectly curated throughout the book. And a lot of the people that I read and love, I just went, oh, of course she's got a Michael Singer quote in there just at that right moment. Ooh, what have you learned from teaching others about this practice?
The first way I will respond to that is we're always a student, even in the act of teaching.
Yes,
Never,
we are. And a
yeah,
teacher.
always. No, when you're holding that
Mhm.
understanding that as you
Yeah.
are, and this is as a parent, I feel the same way.
Mhm.
My daughter teaches me as much as I know she is watching.
Mm.
So the first thing I would say is it's taught me to hold the ability to guide and be guided at the same time.
Yes.
It and because I hold that resonance, I am very really confident with ambiguity and really
Mm.
confident in trusting the process. So I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. I have my workshops have a structure of sorts. Like I'm going to start here, we'll do these three prompts. But I do not go into it with any feeling of what I believe is going to happen because make room for magic is the other way I would respond.
Mhm.
It's part of the creative process because when we make room for magic, which I never did in the past, I was one of those people that getting point A to point B, I got there, let's move on to and that's the other thing you asked me, what else has workshops and teaching people, what has it taught me? It's taught me not to move on too quickly when somebody has an aha moment.
Mm.
Because I used to do that. I'd have a moment of aha or a moment of success or a moment of like, I got it. And then I'm ready to move on to the next thing. What I believe I do in a way that makes people feel held is I notice the ahas and I acknowledge it and go, that was big. Do you know how big that was? I hope you can sit in that bigness because
Mm.
please don't move past that too fast. And the word that keeps coming up for me,
Yeah.
I keep hearing integration, integration, integration. It's one of the
Mm.
areas of my work that I really focus on, whether it's integrating with the psychedelic community or integrating with the wellness community or integrating with corporate America. You can do my workshop, but that's only part of the journey. The journey is how do you integrate the moments of awareness and consciousness into the world and make it your own. That's the invitation. And so so that I have to model that to say, you just had this huge aha moment. You've had this huge breakthrough. Don't bypass and just make like, oh, that's done. No, let that bigness of that moment sit with you for weeks, months, if need be, and then allow it to be integrated into your life. That is the invitation.
Mm. There are a lot of invitations in your book. And some of them I found easier to embrace than others, as everyone who reads your book and accepts your gift would say, because we meet the moment how we meet the moment. So for somebody like me who picked up the book and went, oh, I love this concept, but I can't draw. I can't draw a stick figure. I can't play hangman. I'm so bad, right? I'm your target person, because what this book teaches you is that it's not about being a good drawer or creating beautiful art. It's about being in the creative process and surrendering to what your inner landscape wants to express right now, or how you're seeing things or feeling things. Just breathing into it and allowing the flow to carry you is how I would express it.
Yeah.
How would you express it?
Well, first of all, thank you. I just love talking to you, because the way you reflect back, I mean, how could you not feel so much love in the way you receive my work? So thank you. I just had to acknowledge
Well, thank you for the gift that allows me to reflect back. But I mean, it is a very, very, very special book.
Thank you.
I don't they're not just words. My
I feel
heart
it.
gobbled this book up.
No, I feel it. So what you just said is the most common response I get before we even start. In the workshop, we're getting the book. I'm not an artist. I don't know how to draw a stick figure. I
don't even enjoy it, is what I would have said to you. That's not how I want to spend my time. I'm not good at it. I can't do it. Yeah. I'm frustrated. I don't have the patience. It's going to look crap. I mean, this is like,
no, this is all of these things. When I hear those words, you said it earlier, and let's expand on what you said, because it's very profound what you said. It transcends language. So those are words. Those are just words. And I say just words. Take the word just out. Those are words. But what are those words really saying? It's saying, here's all the reasons I don't want to do it, because there's resistance. Here's all the reasons I don't want to do it, because I hold reverence for art and artists. Here's all the reasons I don't want to do it. Here's another reason is I put it out there so to set your expectations, because I don't want to feel judged or criticized. All I feel is energy, and all I hear is, here's all the emotional reasons why you want me to know, as the person hearing those words, why you might not succeed at it, or you might not be good at it. So all I'm hearing is protection. All I'm hearing is, here's all the ways that I have to say out loud why this might not be for me. Whether you're doing it for me or for yourself, that's all I hear. So what I do, I just pour love into it. And let me just deconstruct everything and say why it isn't art for me. I believe that my entire life experience was what it allowed me to do is see beyond the art. And I started to see them as marks being made that were speaking to me. So a line, a dot, and that's important, because if you looked at my sketches as a child, they were considered what they call picture perfect, photographic art, where my entire goal test was to make it look exactly the way it looked. And by the way, one vision's coming in is, I remember going through seeing my Instagram feed, and somebody posted, it was horrifying to me. I genuinely was horrified. Is in China, it was a warehouse full of people, artists, trying to get into this college in China. And they were all painting the same painting. And there were people judging, saying, nope, nope, nope. It was exactly the reason I abandoned my art. It is exactly the reason I'm half Chinese. And so I knew ancestrally that was my ancestor. Is like, how can you look at 1,000 artists painting the same exact image and say, nope, yes, no, yes, because they're looking at it as technical skill. They're looking at it as, doesn't look exactly the way it looks. I guarantee you they're not going, God, this made me feel something. Wow, this artist's energy is so connected to spirit, source, God. They're not looking at it like that. So that visual came in for me, and the way I'm answering it for you is, it's not art, because in the intention is everything. My intention was never to create art. My intention was to address my anxiety. My intention was to finally face the things that I had been suppressing. My intention was to do it in the active play so I could hold darkness. It was never about the art. It just so happened that I found a tool that allowed me to do it. And now, if you ask me what this tool is, it's a wand. If I pick up a pen right now, it like, whew, I'm like in another world. So it didn't start off as a wand, but it is a wand now. It's magic.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because tools can be weapons, depending on the intention. To your point about intention, it is all about intention.
It is.
And when you invite us to leap, as you say at the beginning of the book, leap into this with me. And it is an act of courage because you're leaping into the unknown. But if you understand through the course of your book that we can hold the known and the unknown together and feel safe.
Yes.
And feel seen in a way that we desire to be seen, whether somebody else sees us that way or not. But so there's a really beautiful journey there. Take me inside the It Has to Be Me to write this book, to go beyond workshops and actually put pen to paper in a different way.
No, it had to be me because everything you've been speaking to, Tess, speaks to why me. And by the way, that question of it has to be me, which I love, is it takes, it gives it this beautiful tonality of love and compassion. Because if you said it has to be me, somebody could hear ego. Like of course it had to be you.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Sheila, because when I was naming the podcast, that was my deepest fear, that somebody that looks at it, that comes in cold as a stranger would go, oh, God, that's some girl waxing poetic about how she's so great, or it's all about her, or like a narcissistic kind of a thing. And I really struggled with doing the intro to explain what it was succinctly.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway.
No. Actually, can we just, can we just extend on that because it's going to answer the question. I had a moment similarly with the word unseen. We're ahead of our time. We're ahead of our time. It has to be me is a statement of claiming. It is a statement of sovereignty. It is not a statement of ego. And you knew that because you carry that energy. So F what the critics will say, or F what somebody is perceiving it to be, that's on them. You knew the energetic torch you were carrying and the light so just going back to that, because I felt that with unseen. I'm like, oh, the moment I describe this as unseen, I'm going to lose my audience. And you know what? I took the leap because I had to honor that unseen to me is not just thoughts, emotions, it's energy, it's spirit, it's all the things that, for whatever reason, if you have any sort of visceral response to that word. So I'm glad we talked about that because it's.
No, thank you. Thank you for that offer. That's, I take that into my heart.
And I just lost the question we were talking about because we went down to the.
Yeah, the it has to be me moment. That's me. I'm sorry I derailed you with that.
No, it's all good.
It has to be me to write the book.
Yeah. Well, it has to be me because my life's work led to the way it was written. It had to be me because during the process of writing the book, I hit a major writer's block.
As we all do.
As we all do.
There's that old saying, I would have written you a long letter, but I didn't have time.
I love it. But
I would have written you a short letter, but I didn't have time. Sorry. It takes courage and presence to write.
Yes, but
and
the writer's
sometimes the block is there and for a reason.
No, but the writer's block is going to answer definitively your question of why me. It had to be me. When I had the writer's block and I was panicked because I had to submit my manuscript and I was panicked, like I had the timeline against me. I'm like, I had to meditate and pray. And I said, why am I hitting this block? And I heard very clearly, Sheila, you're writing this for everyone, because it was true. I was bringing in all the PEEP students. I was thinking about the veteran, the homeless youth, the domestic violence victim, the child. I was writing it for everyone, Tess. And so I prayed and meditated and I said, help me get out of this block. And I don't remember the exact process and journey that got me there in that moment, but I do remember the outcome was write it for your 15-year-old self. Because the 15-year-old self is the time in which I was having severe eating disorders because I was hiding all the emotional pain I was in. But I was also the first time I abandoned my artist self. I stopped creating art. And so I knew if I wrote this to her, which I did.
Mm.
That's what got me out of the block, is I was trying to write for everyone, but I needed to know where the block was coming
Mm.
from. So I was already being guided. So yeah, that book is for my 15-year-old self. And for all the reasons
Ah.
it had to be me, is that 15-year-old carried a lot of wounds and trauma that universally are carried. It's universal.
Yes, a lot of things are coming up for me as you're speaking, but as a writer and as an actor, when you've got to pick a very specific person that you are speaking to. And once you do that, you channel your intention in a very, very specific way,
Mm.
but it allows you to, with laser focus, communicate your message. And then it can be received by many other people, because my 53-year-old self right now is telling you, Sheila, you wrote that book for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But I probably
Right?
wrote it for your inner child at an age where you abandoned yourself sometime.
Exactly.
It wasn't creativity you abandoned,
Exactly.
but you abandoned yourself at some point
Yes,
in time.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I would also say, and tell me what comes up for you as I say this to you, but it felt like a love letter. Felt like a love letter to your 15-year-old, but it felt like a love letter to your nene, to your grandmother.
It was, and I want to
Yes.
touch on that because
Yeah.
I touch on it in the book, but my fear of flying got so bad that I didn't go to say goodbye to her. And I didn't even recognize that that's how bad my fear got. I rationalized, like, I don't want to see her that way. But honestly, and it was honest, and I was filled with shame. I talk about it in the book. But the idea of being on a 14.5 hour flight terrified me so much because it was at the height of my fear of flying that I couldn't even. To this day, I'm shocked because I would never make that choice now. But my heart was overruled by my fear, which is the ultimate lesson where we are in the world today. That's why it's coming
Mm,
up now,
mm,
is we look at the world around us and we have many reasons to be paralyzed. I was paralyzed, but that's because we're in fear. If I were in a state of love, I would never have made that decision, but I needed to make that decision. I needed to learn from it. I needed to be filled with shame because the shame I was allowed to process through that act. I have a lot of shame in my life, but actually it was the shame of not saying goodbye to my grandmother that really opened the box of shame and the box of
mm,
what does really shame mean to me, and how do I transmute that feeling. And one thing I will say as I say that, there's no emotion I cannot face now. I'm not a person that's all about love and light and this is all I'm only ever going to sit and stand in that emotion. I believe every emotion is a teacher for us. And I will have waves of these emotions flowing through me all the time, and they're just teachers. They're all
mm.
teachers. Yeah.
Let's talk about emotions for a little bit. So
Let's,
in the
shall we?
yeah, let's do that. Often they're words, which is why, I was telling you this right before we hit record, that Consolations by David White sits by my book. Sits by my bed. And when I read your book, I felt like it was the sketch version of that book, where you've got 21 chapters and we sketch a word or our understanding of that word, and you help guide us into many different understandings and ways of holding that concept or where that emotion sits in our bodies. But if we can't identify it intellectually, mentally, but also somatically, physically in our body, where does it activate in our body? And that's
Mhm.
one of the beautiful things about your book, is in the reflections piece of each chapter, you ask the same questions.
Mhm.
And one of them is, how does it feel in your body? Because it's coming from your body and your spirit, your sketch.
Yeah.
So take me inside the choice to put that, the diagram of the emotions, the emotional
Yeah.
wheel at the front of the book.
It's at the core of the why of the book, and the why it had to be me is externally. I was very expressive. I'm a very expressive person. Even my hands are always like I'm Italian,
Mhm.
like just very expressive.
I know you and I had smashed glasses
I
together
know,
at the coffee
like
shop on fair.
high-fiving each
Don't you
other.
worry.
So it's but interestingly, and this is I share this because to me emotions and feelings hold three different layers. There's the
Mm,
feeling of the emotion, which is the embodied experience of it.
mm,
There's the expressing of the emotion, which is putting what we feel out into the world. And then there's the meaning of it. And that's more of the rumination, the philosophical, the invitation to speak to the highest self, the spirituality. Those are all the layers. When I'm sketching, I'm dancing on all three of those. Sometimes I'm only dancing on the feeling part. Sometimes I'm only dancing on the expressing. Sometimes I'm only doing it to find meaning. And sometimes I'm at all three, right? They're like waves of attunement. That's why I do see it as a soul journeys. I'm attuning to which wave or current I'm supposed to be sketching into right now. And that is why, because it is what makes us human, Tess. It's the body is always feeling into something.
We're all emotion.
we're walking ball of emotions. And it is what it is. It's so fascinating to me that I spent, 42 years? So I've been doing this almost 9 years. Yeah, 42 years of my life not knowing that. At first, I didn't have a language. Like you said, the reason I put the wheel in there is if I asked you what my emotional vocabulary was, probably that of a 5-year-old. Angry, sad, joy. I didn't know the nuances of why I was angry. I was angry because I felt abandoned, or I was angry because I felt like I was manipulated. These are all different types of words, but there was so many layers to anger that I was feeling, or shame. And that's why it's emotion. Part of the reason I put the feelings wheel in there is to help people like us, me at the time, that didn't have an emotional vocabulary, to just show you the complexity and the layers that exist within any emotion.
And to be able to identify what it is that's swirling around, and that it doesn't just have to be one thing.
Yes,
we want to put
things.
things in static boxes, because that's apparently easier to understand, but actually more difficult if we don't allow everything a seat at the table. We want to exile certain parts of ourselves that aren't particularly comfortable or pretty, or, to speak to your point about shame. We all have shame within us.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether we're using that word or not.
Yeah. Well, there's an aspect of it that I just want to add, because it's important to humanity, is it's relational too. Oftentimes we keep our emotional vocabulary simple because we believe that's the only way we'll be received. We believe that if we show any sort of complexity, or if we show any sort of vulnerability in the layers of us, one, we don't feel safe, but again, relationally, we don't think we're going to be received or loved.
Yeah, we're not going to be enough, or we're going to be too much.
Exactly.
And we think they're in opposition, but they're actually part of the same coin.
Exactly. Yeah. And if there's a through line in our conversation I keep bringing up, is this is the I and we conversation. Yes. We think it's a solo journey. We think we're having, and again, that's also, you were talking about being self-conscious of what the name of the podcast. I'm very self-conscious, not in self-conscious in an uncomfortable way, but I'm very conscious, of how much I talk about my inner healing. Because it's like, oh, heal yourself. But what I want people to understand is, when I heal myself, I heal the world. That's how I hold it. I don't think of it as I'm just going to heal myself and I'm doing the robot voice. I'm not healing myself for the sake of being ego-driven or individualistic driven. I'm not even wired that way. My languaging, my book, my work, the way I speak is always with the understanding. I go in, it comes out. I sketch on my page, I see the world as my canvas. It is constant dance of the I and we. Always. I and we. It is there, which is why languaging matters.
Oh, let's talk about this co-creation aspect of this whole practice.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I love it. You asked it earlier, and when I said to you it was a profound reflection you gave that I'm still holding with love, is I was not aware I was always co-creating with my higher self when I was just connecting to my body. So I was always co-creating there. I was unaware that when I'm sketching, even with an audience in mind, so when I was sketching for others, because I was focusing more on what other people think, that is a co-creation. We just don't realize it, because we're co-creating with the perception of somebody else's eyes. So again, the languaging is very compassionate now. Before it was like, oh, F you, gallery owner that doesn't want that piece of art, or F you, art buyer that doesn't want this, right? Because I'm holding that judge and critic too, not just them, right? So there's all these ways. I believe in my whole heart, daily sketching and sketch poetic just taught me the language of love and compassion. What does that really feel like? What does that look like? How does it sound? What are the words? And yeah, it's the co-creation to me is an extension of that. When you're co-creating with someone, what you're really saying is you bring something that only you and I could ever create together. This thing, this apex, this keystone could never have existed. This podcast conversation would never have existed. The energy, vibration, the message had to come together for us. We had to co-create it for it to be heard by one person. And that only takes that one person to hear it, the way you and I and how you're facilitating this is meant to be heard. That's the power of co-creation. So there's always that third energy. That is it. And we're also co-creating. I mean, listen, whatever your belief is, we are the creator. We are the creation. So we're in that dance all the time. We're both creator and we're being created. So that is even just an act of that, we're co-creating. So it's just fascinating to me. It's really a beautiful dance.
It is. Yeah. It is. And the acceptance of the energy that exists within us and around us, and allowing your pen to find its way, and that you don't even need to know. You just allow it to flow. So take me inside why we have to use a pen. It can't be a pencil.
It cannot.
Oh, let me tell you, when I read that piece, when I was getting ready to sketch, I went, straight away, I had anxiety. I had to just do a somatic practice. I went, ooh, what's that bringing up for me? Oh, ooh. Then, of course, you answered. I was your person. So you answered all of it. I wanted to erase it. And, oh my God, what if I make a mistake and it has to be perfect? And, yeah.
Oh, I mean, there's the practical answer is exactly what you said. I knew I couldn't erase it. I also knew the nuance of drawing and sketching. So when I used to draw, I would always draw with a pencil. So when I started sketching, because I was very purposeful about this, I keep touching my ear because it was guided. Sketch, don't draw, sketch. And so I'm like, oh, if it's got to be fast and loose, I've got to do it in a way that can't get attached. And I knew if I did it with a pen, I'm just going to have to really suck it up, Buttercup. You're gonna be very, 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 very uncomfortable, and you're gonna hate it, and you're gonna be uncomfortable. I wanted to be uncomfortable, and I knew that. That's when the readiness came. I was already uncomfortable. I was experiencing severe anxiety flying, so I was already uncomfortable. Might as well give myself a form of discomfort that was pleasurable in the sense that it was something I was familiar with. So the pen is exactly that. And then, of course, the soulful guided part of it is it forced me to address my perfectionism. It forced me to confront the people pleaser in me, because the people pleaser in me is like, if somebody sees this right now, I'd be so embarrassed, right? Like Sheila, you're an artist, or Sheila used to be an artist. So it forced me to sit internally and externally with this idea of perfection and people pleasing, which were the two, as a psychologist or somebody that does therapy, those are the two ways it showed up in my life of my is that I had to be perfect to keep myself safe. If everyone loved me, the people pleasing is if everyone loved me, no one would hurt me. That was the languaging. If I'm perfect, everyone's going to love me. And if I'm pleasing everyone, no one's going to hurt me. But that was, as you know, very flawed. It's just.
But we all keep chasing it.
We do. So the pen was very purposeful, and it is the thing that makes people very uncomfortable. And also
the pen set me free.
Good.
I'm going to tell you, because the other thing that was coming up for me, all the things that you just said came up for me, because, in our program, we have a mantra of good, better, or best, not perfect. And that it's all about surrendering to the imperfection and the glory that comes within it. And yet I can accept that in my head. But then I still have
I can accept it here down, here up.
Exactly.
My body does not.
I'm an Enneagram 7 with a very, very powerful 8 swing, and I'm a 1-to-1 subtype, right? So I'm just head, right? And I got to remind myself that my heart's there. Hello,
Yeah.
But what was so interesting about the process of sketching in the way that you teach is that, when you accept it, and through the process of doing it, like my dear friend Jess, my editor, who says we don't we don't have to understand things to do them. We understand them by doing them.
Yes.
And
Thank you,
he
Jess.
thank you, Jess, but he got given that by somebody else, so thank you,
Yeah.
right? And then he gave it to us on the previous on another podcast episode. But it's so true. And in the process of doing and being and breathing and loving and all of the things that you teach in the book, and then when you get through, towards the latter parts of the book, you go, by the way, the sketch it's not ever done.
No.
This isn't a snapshot that's done and dusted and you can't come back to it and you can't continue playing with it. And just that reminder is so beautiful. And it really did just go, I'm sticking everything in pen now. It's great. Well, just because why would we want to erase and undo anything that gets layered into the tapestry of who we are and who we can become and is part of the possibility out there?
Oh, here's an interesting, oh my gosh, something just came up that's so fascinating.
Please. Please
Impermanent.
share. Touch your ear again.
No.
It seems to work very well for you.
It does. Because we're intuitively just talking and channeling at this point.
Yeah.
Impermanence. It is by design that something so permanent as a pen taught me impermanence.
Yes. It's this holding of the two seemingly opposing forces that you teach so beautifully in your book. It's permanent, and yes, it's impermanent, and yet it's impermanent.
But see how if you walked by someone and you said, if I do a pen sketch and it's impermanent, they wouldn't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But the journey of again did not go into this. Like we're talking 9 years later of this. None of this. These are the inner knowing that we always talk about. You and I talk about. The knowing has always been there, but you learn and remember what you know and the time you're supposed to remember it. Because again, I just had that moment of aha, like, of course, yes, of course, that pen, a very permanent tool, a very permanent stain would be the very tool I would use to teach myself impermanence. And lack of attachment, of course, because it is that dance of the unity of the two.
Yes. I'm having a full-bodied yes to this. May I add something to what you're saying?
Please.
Yeah. So what's coming up for me is, my unconscious and my conscious knew. Now I'm giving myself permission to know.
Oh, okay. Yes. Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. Because what's coming up for me is, so I've got this beautiful niece. She's 16 and she gets very anxious and stressed, and she's aware that she does. But what's so interesting is she's got all these ways to regulate her nervous system, and nobody taught her to do it. Nobody told her to do it. She just knew that she needed to do it. So one of them is when it's all too much for her and she's stressing about a test at school or something like that, or there's a lot of stimuli in the room and she just needs space, she goes out and jumps on the trampoline. And when I first moved back 4 years ago, because I just wanted to be with her and reconnect with her, I would go out and want to jump on the trampoline with her because I thought that would be really fun because I love jumping on the trampoline. Oh, no. She wants to be on that trampoline by herself. And it's not about me or rejecting me. That is what she needs. That is a solo practice for her.
Yes,
and guess what else she does? She starts sketching. She starts drawing. And I could name other things, and language doesn't do it for her. So when we start to talk to her and start going, use your words, what do you need? Tell us what you need. It transcends language, what she needs to regulate her nervous system in that moment. And I'm thinking that down the road, just like you, because she's around that 15-year-old that we're talking about. She's 16, but in that zone we're talking about, where you're becoming a woman, you're stepping into another frontier of knowing, all the hormones are raging, all the things, right? I'm just thinking ahead and wondering. Now I'm going to scratch my ear and do what you're doing.
I noticed you have an ear thing too. Yes,
I do. I know. Isn't it funny? We're both tapping our ears. But how she will look back and think about, and recognize and celebrate that her heart and her nervous system and her being and her spirit, her soul, or whatever we call it, and her mind always knew what she needed.
I would add one thing that is potentially challenging, one thing that you said, and I'll say this because I work with kids right now.
Yeah.
She won't need to reflect back because she already is in it. The difference
Thank you
between
for
our
that.
generation and their
Mm,
generation, Tess,
mm.
you and I come from a different generation. We
We
did
do.
not know about emotions. I
Mhm.
definitely know when we were growing up, we were not about spiritual. I mean, it wasn't like spirituality. Social media didn't exist. So we didn't have access to all the ways people speak about the soul and spirit, right? And we also didn't
Mhm.
have access to all the ways people talked about creativity. This generation has access to a lot of information, a lot of content. And
Mm,
what they're being invited to do is discern what's working for them.
mm.
I don't think it's going to be a reflection for them.
Sheila,
I don't think it's going to be.
discernment.
Yes, it's a
So
big one.
this is what's interesting about
It's a
this
big one.
generation, in my opinion, as
Yeah.
someone that does not have a daughter. But here's what I see as a
Yeah.
53-year-old. They've all got infobesity. They're bombarded by stimuli and information, but
Hmm.
I'm not sure if the discernment is being taught.
No, it's not.
And it's a very, very big piece of this. And you talk about this in your book.
Yeah. Discernment is not being taught because that is the language of spirit. What is
Mhm.
being taught is the language of the body. So they are already regulating their body because they have to survive this world. They already intuitively now got to jump on a trampoline. They're trusting
Mm.
their unconscious or they're being guided by spirit. Genuinely, in the height of some of my darkest times as a teenager, I
You're
genuinely
giving me
know.
hope
Oh,
because
yeah.
that is not has not been my experience
No,
of a
I will
lot of
tell you,
teenagers. Yeah,
yeah, no,
please.
I do hope I give you hope because my daughter's about to
Yeah.
turn 18 and she's one of the beautiful youth that I have access
Mm,
to, not just because she's my
mm,
daughter, but
mm.
she is one of my great teachers. But I will say to you, you cannot be in the world today and not hear the knocking of spirit. You cannot because AI, psychedelics, creativity, they're inviting us to see beyond our eyes. They're inviting
In
us to,
our sphere, Sheila,
yes, in our sphere, yes,
in
but
this sphere, there is a
yes,
whole other sphere where I feel like there are people that are choosing to be disconnected from their bodies. As you
yes,
point out before, to come full circle,
to survive.
that you're either actively seeking out disconnection
Yeah,
or you're actively seeking out connection. And we
yeah,
can do both at the same time in various parts of our
yeah,
lives and various relationships. We can be connected and disconnected.
yeah,
Absolutely. We are all in that soup, so to speak.
yeah.
But I do think that it is a choice
Yes,
to seek
agreed.
that out and go deep and to drink from the well, to use your analogy
Yeah,
earlier in our conversation. Do you see
yeah.
it that way as well?
Yeah, yes, and but I want to just extend on where I was going here because where the danger for me is. So I'm not saying I will give you hope for the youth because I see
Please.
it, but the danger in which I would describe and why I believe the arts and artists and creators are being called is our children or the youth of the world, the children of the world, are lacking in imagination because they're being told and forced of what it should look like. So that's what I'm talking about. If in the world of social media, television media, we are not inviting kids to be bored, period. And I
Mm,
talk to many adults who are struggling with ADHD, and I know they
mm,
didn't have ADHD before. It's because our world, to your point, is sensorily, it's like constant bombardment. But what we're really teaching, let's go back to the arts. Boredom equals imagination. Period. So what really we're suffering from is the crisis of boredom. Like, when did we not become bored? Like, boredom was our thing as a kid. Like, you and I remember I was telling my daughter she couldn't wrap her head around my upbringing. I'm like,
mm.
Layla, my daughter's name's Layla. I'm like, Layla, I would ride my bike at 8 in the morning. My mom had no idea where I was for 15 hours. Come home. And sometimes I was just riding my bike and I would sit at the park and look at the sky because I didn't have the internet. I didn't have a lot of, and she couldn't understand, but I was bored a lot. So I would have to force myself to look for things. And I was very imaginative, very imaginative. So I'm saying that I think that's the part that I feel called to bring back into to youth when
Yeah.
I work with them, is to get them to imagine again. And imagination is
Mm.
a lot of the things that I want to activate.
Oh, activate's a great word. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever been bored in my entire life. I have to say, when you say that to me,
Yeah.
I don't know where to put that in my body. To going back to the emotional language piece of this, I don't get bored and I don't get lonely, or perhaps I'm not recognizing that that's what it is. To be honest, and I'll
Yeah.
I'll have to continue thinking about this long after this conversation is
Yes.
over. But I just dwell in constant curiosity.
Yeah.
If something's not interesting to me anymore, I find something else. You know what I mean? So maybe there's this very, very small little lull, perhaps. But I love the invitation in your book to
Mm-hmm.
play in a childlike way with an adult and bring an adult consciousness to it, or
Yeah.
bring your present consciousness would probably be a more interesting way for me to explain it. How would you say that?
Oh, play is everything. But I want to just comment on what you just said. If I had to use a different word for adulting of what boredom is, it's rest.
Mm. Is what?
Rest. It's
Ooh.
the adult version of boredom.
Oh,
Um,
there you go.
when
All
we're
right.
when
That
we're
that lands for me.
well,
That
when we're
lands for
children,
me.
we can be bored because we've got our parents to take care of us. We have a community. Hopefully, we're privileged
Mm.
enough to have love of
Yeah.
family, and so I say that out of privilege.
Yeah.
But when we're adults, we don't have that. Like we don't have like a net of two people. So any parent, anybody that's so what we're having to do is we're adulting at that point, and rest becomes our challenge of like just
Ooh.
sitting, just resting. So for me, boredom and resting is that same frequency of energy. So just going to that,
Ooh.
yeah.
All right. I'm taking up that offer. And I'm going to thank you for that,
Yeah.
because that is opening up a whole other portal of understanding around that.
Well, I'll tell you the through line of boredom and rest that
Mm.
needs to be spoken about. I just wrote a Substack about it. When did stillness not feel safe?
Oh, you bring this up in the book. That really, oof, I didn't really know where to put that bit of your offer into my body. Mm.
That is stillness is boredom, stillness is rest. So stillness was my issue. When I say my issue, the thing that I was reckoning. So I'm glad you were honest and said boredom, that doesn't sit with me. You're absolutely right. It's not sitting with you because that's not the right language for it.
Oh,
Stillness is the language. Stillness is the language.
okay.
I'm just letting you know,
I
working with
love this.
huh? Boredom is the thing that I've noticed.
Yeah.
But stillness. And
Oh.
so I didn't even know, and this is why sketching was so potent for me, is it was the conversation with my marks and the higher self where I started remembering. I just had a memory of my mom and father, mother and father fighting, and there was domestic violence. And my and this is I just have to be trigger warning. I don't want to get too deep into it. But bottom line is there was a moment of stillness and silence, and that was more uncomfortable to me than the noise. So
Mm.
unconsciously, I held that understanding of like I don't like stillness because it brings me back to this moment, and I didn't even know it was
Oh,
happening. So the Substack that I wrote was the
yeah.
question is not how can I not sit in stillness? The question arised that when did stillness not feel safe? That is at the root
Mm,
of it.
mm. The stillness chapter in your book,
Mm,
it's very powerful, I have to
thank you.
say. I mean, look, I love that you start with hope, trust, love. You know, I mean, to me, they're just the foundation of the whole shebang, right?
Yeah.
The whole cake. And then we just keep going, and you can bounce around the chapters. You don't need to read it in a linear way. You can just open a chapter and sketch to what speaks to you that day. It's always takes you on a journey. I want to ask you about resonance
Thank you.
and you seeing these sketches as like hieroglyphics.
Yes. Yeah, I
Tell me
told
about
you
that.
that. That's something I don't talk about publicly, and I'm glad you're inviting that in. It is about languaging for me. One of the things that you should know is when I was writing the book, COVID hit. So I was kind of at the
Mm,
edge of COVID. I think it was I was tail end of writing the book and then COVID hit. So I had to do my workshops on Zoom.
mm,
And what that afforded me, thank goodness, because it wouldn't have been in the book, but what it afforded me is access to the global community.
mm,
And The reason I say that is I got to see a lot of sketches. And when I would see the sketches, I could hear and feel the culture of that person through the sketching, because the expression. So for example, like let's say we're just sketching the same thing. We're all sketching spirals, right? Now, a spiral is a spiral is a spiral. But when I saw a spiral from somebody in Africa versus Brazil versus Australia, I actually saw and heard, and what was happening is I was connecting from the heart because I was looking beyond the marks. I was hearing what they were saying about what it was bringing up for them. So resonance for me is looking beyond why. Again, it's going back to the art, the artist. Like this is an art. When somebody sketches a spiral, they're not sketching a spiral. What I'm more interested in, what I'm more curious about, and what I model for the person is look beyond the spiral. What came up when you were sketching the spiral? What unconsciously memories came up? What is happening in your body as you're doing the spiral? So the mark, it becomes the mark. It's not, it's just, it's a vehicle. It's not even. So the resonance for me is just the unspoken, unseen way to describe what marks are for me. And hieroglyphics is simply the feeling. Okay, I'm going to put myself out there a little bit. This is a vision I've always had. This sounds so wild, but
I
let's
love
say,
wild.
I know you
Go
do,
wild.
but let's say, I've been reading that, there's been more spoken about aliens and, beings of other worlds. I would always say, I had this vision that imagine an alien came down or some being from another galaxy came in, and I would just sketch to talk to them is how I felt, because
Yeah.
I knew that whatever the language was, I knew when I'm sketching that it's a vibration, a frequency, it's another language. And I call it the modern day hieroglyphics because I don't see the marks as marks. I see it as frequency and languaging. And it's about, it transcends everything. And that is why I just describe it as modern day hieroglyphics, because there may be a point in time in the future, whether I'm here or not, where we have to communicate with some energy or presence that doesn't speak our language. And how are we going to connect? Well, we're going to have to connect in the unseen realms. It's just the way it's going to have to be. So that's what I mean by far. That's the way I see the world. It's like, oh, there's actually one other thing I wanted to say. There's this beautiful thing in Indigenous communities that I love, that I hope we can adopt, is whenever they commune or do something in their community, they always think about their 7 generations ahead of them. I forget the actual term,
Yes.
right? It's so
Yes.
beautiful. Like I
Yes.
wish we all
They
thought about.
think about the seventh generation.
Always. Like, how
Yes.
profound is that? I just recently heard
Profound.
that and I love it. And that I noticed again unconsciously when I say that knowing is exactly how I'm moving through the world now. I never put a number on it, but I've always said my legacy was never going to be, my full legacy was never going to be felt in my lifetime. Never. And that also took off a lot of weight. The performer in me, the performance driven, academic driven, got to get shit done person, with the moment I was able to say I don't even like the word legacy, my imprint, full imprint of why I was brought into this moment in time will not really fully be realized in my lifetime. And maybe 7 generations from now, because that's exactly what seems to be happening, as I'm being called to do something that is going to require a long, long journey.
May I offer you something that's coming up for me as you say that?
Please, I
Is
would
that
love that.
to riff off of the invitation and the offers from your book, that just like the sketch that is never finished, your offering is realized in this moment and it is yet to be realized at the
Yes,
same
it's
time.
both. I thank you.
It's
Yes,
both.
both. Thank you.
It's both. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hear that. I
Yeah.
receive that. I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you why you resist the word therapy to describe your work.
Oh, that's
Art
so great.
therapy.
Yeah, no.
Because to me, it felt like therapy in the most spectacular way.
You're going to love my answer.
Oh, please.
It's out of reverence. It's
Okay.
not out of resistance because I don't want to call it therapy. My husband happens to be a clinical psychologist. My
Mm-hmm.
husband happens to be a creative expression facilitator. So I
Mm.
have seen the hours he's poured into being an art therapist. So it's not
Mm.
because I don't like the word therapy or that I just
Okay.
have such reverence for people that have studied it. I also, Kathy Melchiotti wrote a testimonial, and her books
Yes.
are taught, right? Her
Yes.
books are taught to art therapists. So Kathy is a person I hold with reverence. I would never say to her, I'm an art therapist. I would never, because one, I'm not clinically trained. However, what I'm hearing you say is it was therapeutic. That I'll own. I'm happy to say that. It is therapeutic to do what I do, but would I ever call myself a therapist or do what I do as therapy? No, because I have such reverence for the people that are studying it, getting their certification on it, and all the constant training they have to do to just to continue to stay. So it's coming from a place of reverence and respect, not from a resistance.
Yeah, maybe this is just me, but from where I sit, potato, potato, I don't care what we call it. And I feel like, again, I'm going to come back to the other point of it's of language and it transcends language at the same time.
Yeah.
And so whatever the process of sketch poetic is for you,
Yeah.
doesn't matter is how I see
No,
it,
I completely.
and I fully accept what you're saying
Yeah.
in terms of your intention about wanting to be clean about how you were representing your offering.
Yes.
I was more wanting to get inside of that. Thank you. But also just the way to express how I perceived it, which was,
No, I
yes, that it was
appreciate it.
therapeutic. It was opening. It was revelatory. I could think of 1,000 words to describe it. And I find myself in a different place with it every time I pick up your book. So that's what's so wonderful about it. It is a living, breathing offering is how I see it.
You know how we talk about being ahead of our time, you and I, like in the sense of your podcast title. What's coming up for me, of the other reason I have not called it therapy or art therapy, art therapy, is I keep using the word healing and healer. You have all the tools to heal yourself, genuinely. And when you see the evolution of Sheila Darcey in Sketch Poetic, watch out, because it's really going to be more about Mother Earth, about spirit, about soul, about mystics. Therapy doesn't even touch, when I say therapy, the therapeutic world sometimes doesn't want to touch that, because you need evidence, you need measure. Where I'm going and where I am right now, you cannot measure it, you cannot see evidence of it. It is transformative, it is life-changing, it is soul, it's alchemy, it's all of these words. And so part of it is, I feel like, yes, it's a little limiting in the where I know it's going to. So yes, I love what you said, and it is languaging, but that's also another thing that's coming into my heart is healing, and healer has always been, but by the way, it's challenged me at the same time. I know people have not picked up my books.
As you're saying those two words, people want to say that to me all the time, and I would never call myself a healer ever. Ever.
Yep. That's
even
what I mean.
after the 30,000 people that have done our programs, I just would never describe myself.
It's because we're not the healer.
Right.
People heal themselves. It's because I'm not a
conduit. You're offering a tool.
Correct.
You're offering a tool.
Yes.
For somebody to explore what's going on for them. That's how I would describe it.
I would never call myself
how do you feel about that description?
Oh, it is a tool. I call it a tool. It's all we can give to people. Listen, the big reckoning I've had many times over is that conversation. I am not a healer. I'm not here to heal you. I'm not here to save you. With my family and my friends and my loved ones, all I can do is be witness, give you tools, and accept that this is your journey and not mine. And it's hard.
How do you feel about facilitator?
I love facilitator. I call myself a facilitator or a guide.
I do too for you.
Yeah.
Guide.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable with all those words for you. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Thank you.
Okay, good.
I accept and embrace
luminary. All sorts of words.
I'll take that too.
Let's talk about one of the beautiful extensions of this offering. Let's talk about the Living Canvas Foundation.
Yes.
What was that? It has to be me moment.
Oh gosh, that one was thrust upon me. I did not plan to start a nonprofit. Are you kidding me? Especially when money wounds were a big part of my healing, like the ability to hold it and call it in and all that fun stuff. But what the nonprofit is, in terms of the way the world perceives nonprofits to be, is really ultimately I'm being called and I want to be called to serve, to be in service of others and do the thing that I do, but get out of my own way. There's a lot of people that do arts and healing. There's a lot of communities that need arts and healing. the nonprofit came into my life, and it's because it is the bridge that I want to create for those two worlds, the people that do it and the people that need it, but make it accessible. Part of the hope of bringing funds into the nonprofit is to call in people that feel like this is an important work, that people do need the arts. And it's not like a after school program, or it's not a privileged thing to do, to sketch. It is a necessary thing as part of our livelihood, as part of our holistic health. So the nonprofit to me holds that resonance and that reverence, because it really is just taking what I do, sketch poetic, and bringing it to the collective in a way that invites others in as well. But yeah, I call it living canvas because it is the way I see the world, that we're all masterpieces, we're all the creator, we're all the creatives, and we are just being invited to live out our art, live out ourselves as artists. And yeah, I'm really proud of the living canvas. It's only been around for 4 months, and we've got some great things we're about to do around initiatives, and I really wanted to see us in schools, in systems that need to look at art differently, even museums, hospitals, things like that, areas like that.
And you have some wonderful people on your board,
Thank you.
including Amy Stanton, who I've interviewed on the podcast and
Yes,
who
she's amazing.
connected us. So thank you,
you, Amy.
Thank you, dear Amy. I have to ask you about the glorious sketch, and I would say piece of art behind you.
It is art.
It is art. It is an offering. I could think of a lot of words for it. Tell me about that, and tell me about your commissions.
Yeah, so there's the for-profit work, which is Sketch Poetic, and then the nonprofit's Living Canvas. This is my for-profit, like the thing that keeps my livelihood as part of it. And so
and that's not a dirty word, dear Sheila.
No,
yeah,
thank God.
I love that you're so comfortable with it now. When you
No, I know I was. It used to be a dirty word. I didn't call myself an artist till recently, which is ironic. But yes, this is commissioned work. There's two ways I commission. There's the hands, which I'm known for. So I outline someone's hand.
Yes.
And I do lean into the intuitive, channeled nature of my work. I call myself a visionary artist for a reason. But the way I describe it is much like a filmmaker. What happens is I have to pretty much put myself in a state where I have 3 to 4 hours of complete space and time to tap into the energy of someone. And then I simply ask whatever is in their highest good to come through. This is a big one. This was a big piece. So this one took me like 36 hours of that. So it was very intense. But basically, different images and different symbols, past, present, future. I might hear it's a very clear, sentient experience. And all I do is offer it to them. They can receive it however they want to receive it. But what it does is it gives them, the way one client said it to me, you give a voice to the thing that I have been feeling, but you do it in such a beautiful way. Like it can hang up on a wall, and it's almost like their essence is being captured, and it captured in that moment, because if I did this a week later, it would be very different. So yeah, this is the channeled work that I do, the intuitive work, the visionary work that I do. I very much do it as word of mouth. I don't advertise it. You won't see me doing ads on it, not because that's a negative, because I hold it that I don't necessarily want to do these back to back either, because it does take a lot out of me. So I prefer word of mouth. I prefer when somebody says, you must check this out, or I think this is perfect for you, because it's already in resonance.
Yes. Well, listener, if you're listening and you're not watching this on YouTube, go over and look at this glorious piece. And I'll just share a little bit about what happened to me. When I spoke to Sheila earlier, before this interview, she was in front of this beautiful piece of art, and I asked her about it. And because what was coming up for me was I had a vision of a similar piece to this that was going to hang in my living room, and my heart just kept seeing it for the last few years. And when she first came on Zoom, my heart just swelled, and I just thought, it's her. There she is. That's it. That's what's been coming to me. It was a promise of what was coming, that 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 was meant to be in my life for whatever reason. And so what I'll just say to you, just as an offer, is if you're seeing and feeling things, just allow them to come in and out of you. It could be a promise of what your heart is going to bring in, or what the world is going to bring in for you. Don't discount it. Just trust in it and just allow it to present itself when it's going to. So that was definitely a moment for me. So thank you, Sheila. I can't wait until you do
It's going
mine.
to
So
happen.
it's
Thank
really
you.
exciting. Look, I honestly just could speak to you all day long about this.
Same.
I always close every episode with the same question, and I cannot wait to hear what you're going to say, which is, when you have a dream in your heart and you don't feel like you have what it takes to make it happen, what do you say to yourself? What do you do?
The thing that's coming up is you are enough. You are in your divine sovereignty, and everything that is and continues to be is the way it is meant to be. Like basically, the dream, we are already in it. The only thing we have right now is this present moment. And what a dream does, and I very much live in the liminal world a lot, even in my waking state. So the word dream even holds such a interesting complexity and resonance. But when you are dreaming something and you don't know how you're going to get there or what it's going to look like, it's actually an invitation to go inward and say, oh, I'm already in it. I'm in the dream. It's already happening. That's why the Living Canvas name came up. I'm already in the masterpiece. I'm in the dream. It's just that right now it hasn't been fully realized in the way you were meant to fully realize it. And the other thing that I will say to all of what you just asked about that is I actually think it's a good thing, because dreams are meant to be ever evolving. And when it's not looking like you don't know where it is, that is actually a good thing, because you're making room for magic. So all of it is by design. All of it's by design. You're in the dream already.
Mm,
It's already happening.
mm,
It's already happening.
mm. And sketch it out is what I'm
Yeah. Well,
about to.
I'm going to say that. Sketch
Yeah.
it out, embody it, release
Oh.
it, release any expectation around all of it. Expectation, by the way, was a big one for me. Letting go of
Mm,
expectations.
mm.
That's a big
Oh,
one.
yes. And surrendering. It just came up. That's what my spirit was saying to me constantly as I was reading your book, as I was sketching. I was just surrender, 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 which I find, I've got to constantly remind myself about that.
Exactly.
I mean, I
Well,
do.
surrender and acceptance are in the same vein.
Yes.
They're one and the same. To surrender is to
Mm,
accept.
yes. Yes. Thank you for this beautiful conversation, and thank you for the way you show up in the world.
Yeah, same to you, Tess. Thank you. Wow. I'm so happy that we met.
Likewise. Oh, what a beautiful conversation. So many takeaways. The big one for me is, are you listening to your body and living in your body? We exist so much in our heads. And for me, I'm in Enneagram 7. So I operate from my head, and I constantly have to remind myself to come back into my body. That's why I do somatic practice, somatic therapy, 5 rhythms, dancing, meditation, and sketch poetic is a playful embodiment practice. It's like dancing. It takes you out of your head and into your body. And Sheila talked herself about being disconnected from her body. I loved when she said, I was never in attunement or in connection with my body. It was part of the experience of my life, but it was an extension of me. It was never a part of me. And when I created and sketched, it became a portal for the unconscious to be seen. I loved when she said, when I sketched, my whole body was full of ink. It was like I was pulling from the well of my wisdom and my knowing, and I realized my body was holding more than just memory. I can absolutely relate to that when I started sketching using her practice. And it is not about being an artist. It's not about being a drawer. So if you're like me thinking, I don't know about this. It's not about creating art. It's just about being in the creative process and surrendering to whatever your inner landscape is telling you, is showing you, wants to express right now. The pen just finds its way. It's actually very freeing, and you just surrender to it, and it's incredibly relaxing. Just breathing into it and allowing the flow to carry you. I loved how she said being in the resonance of creativity, allowing yourself to dance with the creative process, to guide and to be guided at the same time. And part of the creative process is leaping into the unknown and making room for the magic and knowing what your intention is. So Sheila's invitation with the sketch practice is simply to be in the act of play. While sketching, I found a tool that allowed me to process my emotions and be in the darkness. That was her intention, was to just play with what is. Drawing versus sketching, that's an inquiry that I'm going to be sitting with for a long time now. It's really helped shift my perspective that sketches are fast and loose, and they're not usually seen, and they don't have to be seen. The sketches lead to the art typically. And sketching is a way to honor the unseen elements of yourself, the thoughts, the emotions, the energy, the spirit, that we can hold the known and the unknown together and feel safe and seen, whether somebody else sees it that way or not. So when she asks, are you ready to leap into the unknown? That it's about that journey of faith and trust that we have to straddle in life and being able to let go of what doesn't serve us. And when she said we often start with the breath in the class, with the practice, because the breath is the first leap. It's really true, isn't it? When you think about things, often I'm holding my breath when I can't make a decision or I'm scared of something. So when she was talking about noticing the breath while sketching, it does help you notice your breath when you're holding it, how shallow your breath is, because breath is life. It's a real indication of where you're at. And the act of consciously feeling your way through the breath and using it to guide you through that landscape. And are you in survival mode or thrival mode, as I like to call it? Sheila was talking about how she was always in the act of doing, and surviving became living, but it wasn't a full embodied version of living. And the metaphor of turbulence has really, really stuck with me since I read her book and then throughout this conversation. What is creating turbulence in your life? What are the unconscious and conscious fears that destabilize you? And what outside forces trigger that internal turbulence? She said turbulence was a physical expression of all the ways I had not been acknowledging myself. Oof, that rang like a bell in my heart and soul. But it is about safety, as she was saying. What practices and tools do you have to feel safe enough to allow yourself to be seen and to communicate what you need? And through this practice of sketching, you can tap into the memories and experiences that make you feel safe or unsafe, and just have an exploration of all of it. The act of being in creativity can help you hold both in balance. And her question about what helps you express your emotions. So when she was talking about working with the hypnotherapist Linda, and she as a child perceived that she was drawing to disconnect from the outside forces. And then she had the invitation to draw to connect. And what is your emotional vocabulary? And I loved when she said emotions and feelings hold three different layers. There's the embodied experience of it, the expressing of it, and the meaning of it. And so when you're sketching, what did she say? I'm dancing on one or two or all three layers of that. They're like waves of attunement. My body's feeling into which wave or current I'm supposed to be sketching into. Oh, that's what it feels like for me as well. It's a really great way of putting it. And creativity really does expand our emotional lexicon. We are walking balls of emotion. And often we can't identify them or don't have a nuanced understanding of our emotions. So I love this emotional wheel at the front of her book that offers really great prompts to put language to what it is that we're feeling if we don't have the language. And she's using the creative process to expand the complexity and the layers that exist within the emotions. And what parts of yourself are you exiling? I'm constantly asking myself these questions because often we keep our emotional vocabulary simple because we believe that it's the only way that we'll be received. We believe that if we show any sort of complexity or vulnerability in the layers of us, we won't feel safe and we're not going to be received or loved. Ooh, when she said that, that resonated deeply with me. And I really appreciate her transparency around her shame. We all hold shame, whether we want to use that word or not. When she said I needed to be filled with shame around her not saying goodbye to her grandmother, that she let fear paralyze her, I needed to learn from it. It allowed me to open the box of shame and the inquiry about what shame means to me. And then how do I transmute that feeling within me at this stage of my life? And we can hold seemingly opposite forces. They're actually two sides of the same coin. And leaning into and holding both of them helps us hold our experiences and our understanding of the world in a more nuanced way. And her invitation to sketch with curiosity, just approaching everything with a gentle curiosity, just dwelling in possibility without judgment, or then it becomes something else. And I loved it when she said emotions are our teachers. The waves of emotion flowing through me are just teachers. They're all teaching us. We just have to listen. And trusting our inner knowing. When she said the knowing's always there, you learn and you remember what you know, that my unconscious and conscious always knew. And we just often don't give ourselves permission to know because of the consequences of what that knowing might be for other people in our lives and how that might change our relationships. And this building of the practice of sketching every day, that repetition is the way to solidify behavioral change. So what did she say? My commitment to sketch every day was so that the practice would stick. And we do get good at what we practice. I'm really going to be thinking about this concept of boredom. When she challenged me, when I said, I don't know what that feels like, I don't get bored. And she offered us a different perspective about boredom, the frequency of that energy, the boredom as imagination, boredom as rest. And that sketching can be a form of rest and stillness and meditation and exploration of imagination. And how do we feel about stillness and silence? Is it calming? Were you hearing screams and chaos in the silence? And thinking of our internal landscape like Pandora's box, I love that image. And when she said it was always inside of me, opening and closing, I just wasn't recognizing it. And I thought my job was to get the box out of my body. And sketching helped me hold the box inside with whatever was in it. And we are being called to build a different relationship with things, that it's not static. We're holding these apparent conflicting or oppositional forces in balance together, and they can be part of this beautiful tapestry and part of the creation and the connection to source. And when she said on the other side of the box is hope, you know, I love hope and love, as I spoke about in previous episodes. And this act of using the pen instead of a pencil so you cannot erase it. Oh, I found that very, very confronting at first. And now I find it freeing, as she said, that it really does help you practice letting go of perfection. This notion that you've got to get it right, that we don't have to understand things to do them. We understand them by doing them. And sketching is fast and loose, and you can do it in a way where you don't get attached. It's an opportunity to address perfectionism with love and curiosity, to confront that people pleaser that she was so transparent about. What did she say? I had to be perfect to keep myself safe. If everyone loved me, no one would hurt me. And through sketching, you can be in the process of doing and being and breathing and loving and surrendering to the imperfection and the glory that comes with it. And her invitation in the book is that the sketch is not done. And you don't want to erase it and redo it and screw it up. And there's actually an exercise in the book where she has you sketch on a crumpled up piece of paper that you've screwed up. And what does that feel like? That was also very confronting for me because I wanted to get it on a nice crisp piece of paper. And it was really fascinating to see how I felt in my body, what was coming up for me, what memories were coming up for me in my life. I mean, there's over 40 prompts in the book, and I haven't even made my way through half of them yet. So I'm really, really excited to continue this journey. And when she said you can hold comfort and discomfort at the same time, and the pen is permanent, but the sketch is not finished. So your offering is realized in the moment in some form, and it's also yet to be fully realized at the same time. The pen is purposeful, and it made me uncomfortable and it set me free. It is that act of surrender, that the idea that you have to hold things before you can let them go. I had to hold on to something to let go of something. The more I held on, the more I had to let go. This energetic tension and resistance, that what's on the other side of letting go is what terrifies us. But actually, what's on the other side is hope. We think letting go is an act of releasing, but it's really an act of accepting what's always been there. Loved it. And awareness and consciousness are swimming around that during this conversation, and the story of her disconnecting from the outside world as a child, that she was disconnecting from her body, but she was actually connecting to her higher self, her spirit source, something bigger the entire time. She just didn't have the language as a child or the awareness of an adult to understand that that's what she was doing, but she intuitively knew that that's what she needed to do. So how does fear get in the way in your life? You know, her fear of flying got in the way of saying goodbye to her grandmother, and there was a lot of shame around that. My heart was overruled by my fear. I was paralyzed by it. And had I been in a state of love, I would never have made that decision. I feel the same way about some things in my life as well. And which version of your child needs to be healed? When she said, at what point did you abandon yourself and stop listening to what you really want? So for Sheila, she was writing that book for her 15-year-old because that's when she stopped creating art and being true to what she wanted to be doing in the world. It wasn't creativity you abandoned, but you abandoned yourself at some point. So yeah, when we abandon what we really want, we are abandoning creativity. I didn't think about it like that before, but that is what we're doing. So are you living the life that you really want? Oh, that image of her passing the art students at college. And when she would see it, it was a life that passed me by like a cloud in the sky. I was seeing the ghost of myself passing. And there are people around us all the time that reflect the parts of us that we need to see or that we can't see. So find communities where you feel safe and seen. And that inquiry of the stories that we're telling ourselves, are they actually true? So, you know, her example was her telling her mother that, you know, she actually didn't want to be living in this conventional version of the world. She wanted to be an artist. And the fears and constructions that she'd built around that actually didn't play out. Her mother had an initial shock, but then she was actually very loving and very supportive. And I really appreciate her perspective about the dream. We're already in it. It's already happening. It's just that right now it hasn't been fully realized in the way that it's meant to be fully realized, and that dreams are ever evolving. And when you don't see it, it's because you're making room for the magic. So sketch it out, embody it, release it, and any expectation around it. Just surrender and accept what is coming in the moment. And I do really appreciate her call to be aware of the personal and the collective, that what are you being called to do for yourself and the world? What are the trickles and the waves and the tsunami of energy that you're being called to act within? That the I and the we becomes how we can see. And the creativity is incredibly healing, and you heal yourself, and by extension, you can heal the world and be part of that healing process that is so needed right now. And celebrating the co-creation aspect of the human experience, that when you connect with your body, you're connecting with your higher self. When you're focused on what other people think, that is also a form of co-creation. Daily sketching taught me the language of love and compassion. What does that feel like? What does that look like? How does it sound? What are the words? The co-creation with others is an extension of all of that. There's an energy and a vibration, and it just takes one person to express it and one other person to hear it. And then we start to move from there, and that's how change happens. And we can put our creativity together in the same pot and dance around with it, that we are both the creator and we're also being created. And this idea of transcending resonance and seeing sketches as modern day hieroglyphics, that seeing the marks that you make, whether it's a squiggle, a line, a square, seeing them as energy and vibration and frequency that transcends language, or it's another kind of a language, that your marks are a vehicle to understand your energy and presence, the resonance of what you're feeling and expressing. the unseen realms of your conscious and unconscious knowing. This book is of language, but it also transcends language, as I said. The sketch practice, it allows you to let go of language in a way, but also be aware of it at the same time and really listen to your body. And it has made me think, and I offer this to you, of what is my imprint? When she kept talking about marks and imprints, what are the marks that you're leaving in the world? And that lesson from Indigenous communities, they are very, very aware of that in the way that we are not taught to be. What are we leaving behind for the next generation and 7 generations to come? I mean, what we are doing to the environment right now and certain other things, I don't know if there's going to be a 7th generation on planet Earth, and thinking of ourselves as innovators. We are change makers. To be a change maker, you have to embrace innovation and take risks, because change comes with risks. And the idea of failing doesn't really exist, because you can't be an innovator and not fail, because that's part of innovation. So you just play by yourself and you play with others. I also really loved her offer about it has to be me, that it's a statement of claiming. It's a statement of sovereignty. It's not a statement of ego. So when you claim it has to be me, it is actually a gift for yourself and others. Oh, I could go on and on and on about the takeaways from that conversation. Please get a copy of Sheila's book. It's called Sketch by Sketch. This book has really changed my life. It's a living, breathing, organic offering, and you bring something new to you and you bring something new to it. It's really an act of engagement every time you pick it up. There's something very soul-changing about this practice. There's alchemy that's created. It's just a very powerful tool to help you listen and explore what's going on in your mind and your heart and your body. So please connect with Sheila's work. All the links are in the show notes. You can check out her artwork at Sketch Poetic, her handprints, her commissions, and you can check out the Living Canvas Foundation as well, and get involved if you happen to be in California. Let me know if drawing, sketching, painting, creativity, making music, poetry, whatever, making films, acting, whatever you're doing, gardening. I mean, whatever. What is your creative outlet, and how does that help you hold yourself, your relationships, your sense of the world, and help you express yourself? I'd really love to hear. So leave a review or put a note in the Facebook group. I'm excited to hear about it.
I want to hear about your It Has to Be Me story. So head on over to ithastobeme.com/stories to share it in our free community. You can also join the conversations we're having about this episode and others. I'm Tess Masters. Join me next week and we'll dive inside another great story to help us go from dreaming to doing.